Not on. Hi everybody. This is day 1624. I hope you can hear me. Let me make sure everything is working. It looks like it's on. Okay. I can see everybody now. I'm coming on very late. We're burning the midnight oil. It just can't be helped. So much is happening. And I don't want to cover up my notes because I've been on the phone and I have a lot of notes. I try to do everything by memory, as most of you know. But this is just getting so crazy because when President Trump, okay, so we're at 1,624 days since Richard was brutally, premeditatedly murdered on Fort Bliss. On Fort Bliss. He's the Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier that was reporting on the criminal trafficking. Uh, really, hundreds of thousands of children were trafficked across the border unaccompanied. That means they were taken. You don't have hundreds of thousands of children that are unaccompanied. Sorry. No, those are taken children, and they were trafficked. They were processed on Fort Bliss. This is just ongoing, and now we know. We don't know where they're at, but the reports are that they're mostly dead. That they're mostly dead. So the crime is just crimes against humanity, atrocious crimes. I would say crimes against God, absolutely. And Richard was in communication with Child Protective Services, um, and absolutely CYS and Ogle failed to do her job on Fort Bliss. A Directorate of Emergency Services, Thomas Kane, failed to do his job. This is breaches in security every which way. And there's no explanation other than that there was a criminal, I call it the El Paso cartel, that infiltrated Fort Bliss, that they were absolutely complicit, that they were actively involved, or what they just were looking the other way when hundreds of thousands of children are now mostly dead, being processed through Fort Bliss. And, you're in charge of children on the base. You're in charge of security. So Ann Ogle um, and Thomas Kane absolutely have to answer for this egregious crime that they've committed and might have participated in or benefited from it. Um, so, because there's no other explanation, don't tell me they don't know. They know everything about that base. That's their job. Um, and they have access and they have resources. And so Richard, we know, was absolutely in communication with Child Protective Services, which works very closely with Child Youth Services on Fort Bliss. He was whistleblowing on that situation. He was in possession and turned in videos. He was collecting evidence and turning that in. He was in communication with Washington, D.C., with FBI Houston, with CID, with the IG. The IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. And also, did I say CID? Also 911, multiple calls to 911. So, absolutely confirmed whistleblower. That information was kept from us. We had to we had to be the investigators. They even told us, the CID and the command told us that we had to be our son's investigators, that we had to bring them leads. They wanted this case closed, but this case is not closed. Um, Through Team Find Richard Halliday's hard work, we're at now Team Justice for Richard Halliday. All of our hard investigative work, so many of you, and we are so, so appreciative. Um, our family and our nation, a grateful nation, is so grateful to you for keeping this case open, this very, very important case open. They wanted to shut it. And this is a nightmare for the likes of the media that are up to no good. Not entirely all the media is up to no good, but most of them, most of them. I think the alternative media, yeah, is where we need to go many times for our news. But we absolutely know the likes of El Paso Matters, Bob Moore, and Angela Kachurga are absolutely up to no good. And Richard's case is open and it's ongoing and it's active and it is so big. And I know it's big. We know it's big because we have investigated and filed and filed and filed. We've documented and filed and reported and filed. And so we know that well, because we've received confirmation of ongoing investigations. And so when President Trump won this election with this overwhelming mandate by the American people that absolutely knows that something is very, very wrong, that we are $37 trillion in debt, and we have a very, very bloated system and a very bloated military and a bloated, a Pentagon that can't even pass an audit in 7 years, 7 audits, and trillions of dollars, and they can't even withdraw out of Afghanistan properly. That, and this is leadership. I'm not talking about our volunteer sons and daughters that have to serve under these traitors, these absolute traitors. And there's no other way to describe them. When you are given trillions of dollars and you can't even withdraw out of Afghanistan properly, then you are a traitor. Who are you working for? Who are you working for? And in our son's case, when you have a soldier that has been murdered and you have confirmations that the remains have been found, but yeah, and he's a whistleblower, and you use your asymmetric warfare tactics, your PSYOP unit out of Fort Bragg, to try to keep the information from the family, that you absolute lie to the face, to our faces. They absolutely lie to our faces, and they abuse their positions to form Task Force Find Richard Halliday. 15 plus agencies international, including Interpol, including Mexico government officials, including Mexican military. When you use our resource to pull that together just for a dog and pony show, in order to deceive the family of a whistleblower that was murdered on Fort Bliss. There's no other words but traitor, treason, capital criminal. There's no other words than those. That is what describes them. And so we had two generals there, and General McConville, and of course General Michael Garrett. They are absolutely traitors, and so there is a real problem. The people have seen this real problem. They know that it is an infiltration. It's not about patriotism or being against uh, the American people or being against our military. It's against the rot, the absolute rot that has been created by a an infiltration of a criminal organization that has um, placed themselves um, or placed others that were not eligible or that were criminal in these very important positions so that they could carry out their criminal activities with impunity. And that if they had to have service members killed to do it, they would do it. If they had to kill cartel members to do it, they would do it. If they had to create wars to kill people, to create war crimes, that they would do it. And, it's just from the Walmart case to what is going on right now, to the wars that we have. Absolutely, we know that are uh, obviously, they were unnecessary. Obviously, they cost us trillions of dollars, and the price of our sons and daughters um, that lost their lives and also that were injured, terribly injured, and that they would use the VA, they would infiltrate the VA, they would absolutely extort, do fraud, forge documents, to cash in on benefits. They just, they, what do you call that? Uh, Black goo that comes in and it just goes everywhere, and it just is toxic and just rots away the system or rots away whatever is good. And um, you know, this is what has absolutely happened, and the American people during this election, with all of the negative media, with all of the negative or the psyops that were perpetrated, they still got it. They still were able to see through the rot, around the rot, around the psyop, around, and they voted. And they, whether you believe that Trump is the answer, that Trump will do what he says he's going to do, that Kash Patel will come in and do what he says he's going to do, or what Pam Bondi says that she's going to do, what Pete Hegseth says that he's going to do. Whether you believe that or not, the mandate was from the people, and the people were clearly genuine in expressing their disgust for the Trojan horse criminal enterprise, criminal gang that are misusing our government positions and military, and on and on, the agencies and everything. You talk about the FBI, or you talk about the CIA, or you talk about the leadership, whether it be in Congress or in the military or in the courts. You hear people saying it's rotten. It has absolutely been polluted. And saying that is not saying that you don't support our veterans, that you don't support our country, that you don't support um, our great, very great Constitution. That what you're saying is, um, we have enemies within us. We've brought in the snake. We knew that they were snakes. We thought maybe we could tolerate the snakes, or we were just too busy to bother to get rid of the snakes. And the snakes, you know, uh, infiltrated and learned how to use that system um, to benefit off of their criminal activities. And that's been very, very clear in these 4 years. Uh, I'm absolutely. I don't need to be convinced. The evidence says this is what is going on. And now we have these, I was asked today, uh, do I have a picture of Leilani Hart? Someone doesn't know who Leilani Hart is in this case. And I'm like, really? Are you kidding me? Leilani Hart's picture is up all over the place. And Leilani Hart is the prime suspect in this case. And, if you just look 5 minutes into Richard Halliday's case, you are going to see Leilani Hart's name. You're going to know who Leilani Hart is, that she, at the same time frame as Richard was brutally murdered on Fort Bliss, that she has been um, busy putting in a notarized affidavit that implicated herself and her family in the worst of crimes, the absolute worst of crimes against children and against children in her own family with one another and everything, and also immigration problems, immigration violations, purchasing of illegal weapons, all just the worst. And of course, the children videos that are the worst of the worst, that are illegal. And she turned that in. She turned that in. She implicated herself. She confessed. She confessed, and she confessed about her family. And then we have additional evidence of all of that that corroborates all of that. And so now the FBI, what are they going to do? They've got to arrest her either way, because either way, she has created an arrestable offense if she's lied to FBI, if she made it all up, even though we have other evidence that corroborates it, or that all happened. Then she needs to be arrested too, along with her family members like Dallas Hart, like James Courtney Hart. They need to be arrested for their felony crimes. These are felony crimes. Um, and, it's just the records. There's so many records. She's a confirmed convicted criminal from before Richard was even born. It goes on and on and on Fort Bliss. And they've covered for Leilani Hart. The people are still covering for Leilani Hart, to let this rot continue, to let this harm us. Um, and so it just shows you, uh, what the American people said they did not want. They want justice. They want the right thing. They want her arrested. They want the family members that uh, did these horrific felony crimes arrested. They want them off the streets. If they are here illegally, they want them out of our country, because too many of the volunteer sons and daughters, too many of our sons and daughters, period, have been hurt and risked, our way of life risks. And the amount of fraud is costing us literally trillions of dollars that create the need to create money, digitize it, print it. Used to, the inflation was all from overprinting the money, devaluing the money. So inflation, you can say everything's going up, but really the dollar value is going down because it's becoming too common. They digitize too much of it. And that's why we have the prices going up. And yet, the wages not meeting the inflation, and that's creating so much harm. Um, and just a change in the way of life. And we have been suffering through that for decades, decades. You go back to some of these old movies, and it was normal for a middle class family to have money enough for all kinds of workers around their home, that they can employ workers in their home. Now it's like, oh, but that's only for rich people. But, in America, middle class families had yard workers and home workers and housekeepers and all kinds of employment a normal household could afford. And now, we're just, what is it, 39% just for housing costs. It's just a disaster. It's just a disaster. So, all these crimes, all of the fraud and um, the impersonation, the forging, um, all of that creates so many other crimes. So it sounds like, oh, well, that's, we can look the other way. No, we cannot look the other way. And all this confusion and honorifics, like don't call me Miss or Mr., what is your pronouns and all, that is just an excuse to muddle paperwork, to muddle investigations, to confuse people in investigations. The amount of changing names, Leilani Hart has changed her name multiple times. Most of the people have changed their names multiple times, or they use so many names. In this case, it's just, you wouldn't believe it. It would just make your head spin how many different identities these people have, and then they steal identities and impersonate. They're just so fraudulent. It's incredible. And of course, the amount of bankruptcies are just would make your head spin. So they know the system. They know how to fill out the paperwork. They have people in place that coach them through the paperwork, that approve this fraud all the time. And one of those, of course, in very suspicious seat is the prime suspect of the murder of our son Dallas Hart's father, James Courtney Hart, sitting on the IDS Pablo, which is the disability benefits for the VA. And the amount of fraud going on in the VA is absolutely been documented. And so and we absolutely know that this family, through the confession of Leilani Hart, is up to no good, and up to no good at all. Felony. They seem not to blink an eye to create forgeries and fraud and identity theft and immigration fraud and whatnot. For and I think it's even worse with all our evidence that we have through the LLCs and connections with Jonathan Ambrose and Danae Katzen and those Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia from Bliss Avenue, 3905 Bliss Avenue, the Walmart mass shooting connection with Richard's case. So anyone that doesn't know Leilani Hart, anyone that doesn't know Leilani Hart is someone very new coming on. Anyone that's been paying attention absolutely knows the Hart family, absolutely knows Leilani Hart from her dancing connections, her connections to the CID, the connections to the FBI, her bragging. Why do you think we have the FBI affidavit case number? Because that was floating around, because she was, boasting that she could control the CID on Fort Bliss. Um, and she had access to these numbers, because nobody gets their case number unless you have access, unless you have people in there that are willing to break their policies, their oath as an agent, and give her um, access to that kind of information. And we also know, talking about access of information, there's so much I want to talk about. Justin Trudeau is, it's all out in the news now that he will step down as prime minister, like by Wednesday this week. And that's been very interesting. We've been following everything in Canada ever since. We've known of connections in Richard's case to Canada through our harassment, the threats that were for months, just about daily basis, sometimes, multiple times a day. These very harassing, threatening messages to stop us from getting justice for our son, right? To silence us, to intimidate us. And we were getting those, like I said, constantly. And they, were sexually explicit overtones, undertones. There, that's why I called them the sex cult criminal group. Because this just like they're um, obviously, because of the crimes that they um, are alleged to do. It involves all of that. It involves someone that has no scruples and is part of a sex cult and all of that. No loyalty to anybody, no real love at all, no real love at all. Just dark, hard hearts. That's it. Dark, hard hearts. Um, so, um, with that, those calls, we turned that in. We notified the agencies that we were being harassed, and we asked them to do something about it, and they wouldn't do anything about it. Um, eh, they wouldn't do anything about it. Of course, Marlon Soto is not going to do anything about it. He was dirty agent. Of course, Tavita Nusa wasn't going to do anything about it. He's a dirty agent, um, and they absolutely were caught tampering with Richard's file. That was official whistleblower turned in a whistleblower report about them tampering with Richard's file and with video surveillance footage. And we know that they were up to no good with Thomas Kane, the Directorate of Emergency Services for Fort Bliss. And so, of course, um, uh, surveillance footage would be tampered with, right? And that allowed for Richard to be physically removed from his barracks. And we have some breaking news. I forgot about this breaking news we got today. It's been so crazy. We have confirmed that the murder took place in the arms room. We have that. That's a huge breaking news. I should have just put that all out there. We've known that for a little bit. But, and I think I've reported it, but it was confirmed today that, yeah. And I'll explain how that all happened, how that came to be with the leaks, with the, uh, and what we are, doing behind the scenes for that. We are working many, many fronts on this, and the arms room is one of them the arms room was unlawfully uh, um, renovated, and it is, when I tell the story about it, it's so gruesome that maybe that's why I put it out of my mind. But the breaches in security are what led for Richard to be forcibly taken and brutally murdered right there, and then transferring his remains being disrespected, which is a crime, which is a total crime. And so, and we believe to not only do all of those crimes, but not stop there, but try to impersonate the family, forge, try to cash in on his death. These are all, it's just, it's hell, y'all. It is absolute hell. These people are absolute demons, and they need to be held accountable. It just cannot be, because, Richard's not the only one. They do this, which goes to the next topic, right? You can go to Glendon Oakley Jr., you could go to Asia Graham, you can go to so many, Austin Hawk, you can go to Vanessa Guillen, you can go to so many of our young volunteer sons and daughters. Enrique Roman Martinez, right? Think about what they did to him. And that was at Fort Bragg. So this is really important information that has come out through a veteran, terminalcwo. He is, and I'm really praying for him. I really am. I can't even imagine, because now, it's kind of like you see the same MO. And I think Glendon Oakley Jr.'s videos, once you go through those over and over again, really watch them over and over again, it's very clear what their MO is. So you have this beautiful veteran, beautiful soldier. He's a beautiful soldier. And they are reporting what happened, right? Feeling safe to do that. This is what happened. There were a group of security officers in the mall, all in black, with M4s, and there were shots going on in the mall, so much so that it created panic, that the children were running around, and we were, hiding in the Foot Locker with the gate down because shots were going off in the mall. And so I snuck out with my friend, and we were grabbing the kids to get them out of there, because they were running around crying for their parents, and we grabbed them and got them out of there. He's saying, I'm a soldier. Why should I be hiding? I'm caring. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to go get these children. I didn't get enough children, he said, but I tried my best. I'm getting out, and this is what happened. And he told that to CNN. And now those are my words. Go watch the videos. That's what I got from him. Bravery, humility, beautiful, beautiful young man. I just can't describe how I feel about Glendon Oakley Jr. And then the very next day, just the respect for him as a young man that we have for him. And the very next day, what happens? In those hours, he was so attacked by this asymmetric warfare group, by this PSYOP group. Where is the headquarters for that? At Fort Bragg. Okay? At Fort Bragg. They have a PSYOP group at Fort Bragg. Okay? It's not a secret that the military has developed a PSYOP group of professional trained liars to control a narrative. Matter of fact, I wrote some notes on it. I wrote some notes. Make sure I tell you the notes. It's been a really long day, but this is super important. Yes. And I'm going to go back and forth for my notes because there's so many. But this PSYOP group, and you have to understand, Michael Garrett, General Mealy, General McConville, they're all like really right there with Fort Bragg, right? And this PSYOP group, and absolutely Mealy was lying through his teeth many, many times. They've lied to us so many times. It's like they have just become one big fat lie, right? McConville lied to us. Richard was a whistleblower, right? I was speaking to McConville on the phone. I was speaking to Garrett on the phone. They absolutely lied to our faces, to us. And so now we have in the military not a PSYOP group to win a war. We can't do that because the leadership's so bad. No, they do it to confuse the Americans, confuse the soldiers. And I'm going to tell this, the service members, when we went on to Fort Bliss, when we went to, where was that, in Tampa, Florida? That base there, before we went over to Fort Bliss, before we drove over there, the confusion, the absolute confusion was so bad that everyone was in fear. They sowed confusion and fear inside of our military. You want to lose a war, you want to hurt our national security, our national defense, then, just be a leader that wants to sow confusion and fear in your soldiers, in your service members. I'm so Army that I always say soldiers, but yeah, this absolutely, I've heard it from so many. So this PSYOP got out of hand, and it is absolutely legalizing sowing confusion, breaking morale, and also controlling a narrative, meaning making it okay to retaliate against anyone that might not want to go along with the narrative that they want to promote, which means whistleblowers, if there's criminal activity involved, which there is. The whole thing with the PSYOP used within the ranks and to the American people is also criminal. It's a false witness. It's a lie. And that's criminal. So that is really important for this to understand how they could lie constantly and severely all through our son's cases, his whistleblowing and his murder, and then through the cover up, the consistent lies. And for that to be uncovered, exposed, is a huge victory. because the psyops they're professional. And they have this huge purse to funnel or to finance this asymmetric warfare um, psyop group. And that's why some of our calls that we were getting when we complained about them, um, and because absolutely they endangered our family. Uh, they didn't do anything. Of course, they're not going to do anything because Howell is connected to the hearts. CID Howell, he's connected to the hearts. Um, you know, so it's a lot of conflicts of interest there. And so we took it upon ourselves, as they told us to do, if we wanted something done, if we wanted an investigation, if we needed to bring them leads, we had to do it ourselves. So we did that, and we figured out how to trace these phone numbers that were harassing us with the very vulgar messages. But another point about these messages is, if you could get past their vulgarity, um, you could say, wait a minute, they have access. They have access to files, to government files. And that was an important that's important evidence in all of this, that those that were harassing us and threatening us and intimidating us to try to silence us had access to government files. There's no privacy in Richard's case. There's no privacy in Richard's family. And thank God our family is, without too many problems, right? Without too many problems. And I would say sparkling. We're sparkling. Richard is sparkling. And I do not say you have to be sparkling. They should absolutely respect people's privacy, and they should absolutely not be able to dig through the history of family members and bring up 30-year-old incidences or something like this. And but in our case, they absolutely revealed that they had access to records, to government records. And so when we trace the numbers, and I've said this before, and that's why this Trudeau, we've known that Trudeau is up to no good, right? We know that he's up to no good. We know that um, this is all connected with this top group, right? It's not just the United States. It's Mexico and China and Canada, and it is those that are criminally trafficking, right? And so when we trace the numbers, one of those numbers led to um, a pie shop in North Carolina. Then to, they rally, who's using these numbers. A pie shop in North Carolina, then to Toronto, into uh, the Capitol building, what is it? The state building, an apartment right there in Toronto, and then to the White House, y'all, to the White House. And I did not release that for the longest because I thought, who's going to believe that we traced the number and it went to these important locations? Because North Carolina, that's close to the PSYOP, right? That's close to the PSYOP. That's close to Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, North Carolina. And very close in proximity to McConville, to Garrett, to Mealy. Um, there you go. And then, of course, very close to Trudeau and very close to uh, Biden. Because Biden was, he still is there, I guess, but was in the White House at the time. So, yeah, that is where we trace this. And, a lot of people would be like, No way, no way. Yeah, we did it. And we've got it all. We've got all the documents for it. And we turned all that in. And it has been, very interesting turning all of that in. Now, the other numbers, um, went to another PSYOP location, a social media, internet location, and that was Santa Clara, California, to Stanford University area, which, connected to uh, Clem Coward's number. I would say associated with that, or, that he had a Santa Clara, California number. And we're like, wow, really? Okay. And then another number went to Denmark, to NATO, a military base in Denmark, Copenhagen, um, and then to a military NATO base. And then the other number went to South Korea. But these are all very important. Um, Seoul, South Korea, FBI building is right there, where this number was pinging or whatever off of. Um, so, this is Gimpo, because there was like, they relay the numbers relay, and anyway, we've got that, and you know, so to see Trudeau go is interesting. And it reminded me about the numbers. I thought I needed to tell you about the numbers because it's when you have so much evidence against Leilani Hart, like we do, we have so much evidence against her. Why isn't she being, on the 10 most wanted or the most wanted list like Danae Katzen, right? Because they're associated with each other. They're absolutely associated with each other, with Jonathan Ambrose, and all this evidence we have with Leilani Hart. Why is she? They're being very careful, and it goes to and who's being very careful? This criminal group, right? This criminal group. What is she going to spill if they get her arrested? What is she going to spill? I mean, she has her hands deep in all of this with the um all what we have, all the crimes, and the LLCs, and Fort Bliss and Park University, and all the other activities that are criminal that she's been up to. So, and it's no coincidence that a scam artist like Danae Katzen is associated with another scam artist, convicted criminal before Richard was even born, the likes of Leilani Hart. And that Dallas Hart is the prime suspect of the prime suspects in the murder of Richard. Um, so that's thank you, Anicia, for coming on. Thank you, Danielle, for coming on. So how is this all related to the um, January 1st uh, events, crimes? Of course, a New Orleans crime. 14 have lost their lives, many injured. It's huge. Um, the incompetence of the leadership there is also very, very clear. Um, and the renting of this vehicle from the same company that Matthew Livelsberger rented his Tesla truck from. Um, both Fort Bragg, one veteran, one active duty, I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So much information coming in, and uh, and Matthew, who went by Matthew Berg sometimes because of when he was interviewed, um, wrote an email to terminalcwo, who has been um, an ally, a huge ally of our family. Um, Even when we were being attacked on the veterans groups by the keyboard warriors of the PSYOP, asymmetric warfare paid by our taxpayer money, um, which headquarters out of Fort Bragg. And there's no doubt in our mind because they had access to government files. So these are, and no fear of um, attacking in that way and that kind of harassment. The same what happened to Glennon Oakley Jr. within hours of him being so brave. And the next video, he is, brought in tears. He's in fear. He's in chaos. His morale is broken, totally broken. So here we get this news. Their duty at Fort Bragg is to confuse, break morale, and to control the narrative. What you saw with Glennon Oakley Jr. within hours was confusion, a broken morale after being a hero and telling the truth, confusion, breaking morale, and to control the narrative. Control the narrative. And they absolutely forbid him to post. They told him he had to take down his social media, which is absolutely unlawful. And, so what I'm saying is all documented, that is what, look up there. You can find it. If we found it, you can find it. And this whole thing with Matthew Livelsberger, who somehow lost his life, yet somehow blew up the truck. What came first, the chicken or the egg? For me, that's always simple. It's always a chicken. But with Matthew in a vehicle, that's not so simple. And I can't say the word. I've been told I can't say the S word. How did, if he is not able to blow up the car, the truck, because he's incapacitated, what came first? And it couldn't happen. It could not happen the way they want you to see it. And that's why the case in Las Vegas is trending more so right now than what happened in New Orleans, even though 14 people lost their lives. And it was absolutely a terroristic action, right? Clear terroristic action. But the incompetence, or what would you call that? The 10-year, the leadership was so, that whole press conference of the leadership down in New Orleans was so bad. It almost seemed like a Dick and Dolph, Dick and Dolph, what's Laurel and Hardy show. I used to watch it in German. I, anyway, Laurel and Hardy. it it was just so bad. It was just so, you wanted to cry, right? And 14 people lost their lives. It just was so unnecessary. Um, and yet what's trending is, of course, what happened in Las Vegas now, um, where Matthew sends terminal CWO Sam, Shoemate, the email, and the email, is being combed over. There's questions about it, but when you comb over it, it seems very legit. There's, you can go to the UN and check information and all that. There's all this controversy, but the CID from the military is more concerned about this whole Shoemate thing, this whole Matthew uh, Livelsberger thing, because the word is out that Matthew was being a whistleblower, right? They don't like that because their job is to confuse, break morale, and control the narrative, right? That's their job, is to confuse, break morale, and control narrative. That's so wrong because their job is to defend the Constitution. That's their job, right? Not to confuse, break morale, and control a narrative. Um, and that's what's going on against our own people. So who are they working for, right? So this Matthew Livelsberger, um, he writes this email. It seems to be more legit than what the agencies, the police and whatever in Las Vegas are trying to, you know, put out there. And our point is that Sam Shoemate, who has been an ally, um, when we were getting so attacked, and just stood by us and said, look, you can post whatever you want here. You can post, because he believed that something fishy was going on and that we had the right as parents to ask questions about what happened to our son. And so now there is like a little bit of backpedaling with Sam Shoemate. I hope that you pray for him because it, it smells like, it looks like, it feels like the same thing that happened to Glennon Oakley Jr. is happening again. The confusion, the breaking morale, and the controlling the narrative, and getting whistleblowers, brave people, to backpedal and fear for their lives, right? Fear for their lives. And that has also come up in this whole thing, because what was Matthew whistleblowing on? These drones, and I guess from Mexico waters, the submarines or whatever, and connecting it to China, and that they're very, very fast. They have some kind of propulsion that goes really fast, and that, I don't know if all of that is true. That is what is concerning to the CID. That is what is concerning to, even, and they even mention it, the Fort Bragg PAO, or no, the Joint Chiefs of Staff PAO, getting into this mix with this Shawn, what is his name? Shawn Ryan, this big podcaster, and being very concerned, contacting him, David Butler, the PAO for the Joint Chief of Staff, to try to control the narrative, right? Why? What is going on? And this whole thing, then we got another lead, or another opinion on this whole thing, because it's, and I have my notes here: drones, tech, Chinese threat, Afghanistan, war crimes. The email is more reliable than the phone notes, And then it talked about Kash Patel, that this would be used to be an attack on Kash Patel. And I don't know, I I don't know how that all will work out. This is what I'm hearing, that they don't want Kash Patel um, to do his job, to come in to the government as the lead for the FBI and to clean house for the FBI, which is desperately needed, 100%. But they're very afraid of Trump coming in and Kash Patel coming in and others. And so, maybe this is an attempt to try, just like over the holidays, to try to put in a story in the media to use in the court of law. That's what they do. They put these stories out. They try to control these narratives so they can control the cases. They can control the cases if they can control some judges, and they can present some of these fake articles using unreliable sources. They can, make a whistleblower non-reliable, falsely non-reliable, and then they can control cases. And it seems like, and we see that the weaponization of the Department of Justice or the judicial system. And this is what Leilani Hart was bragging about, right? This is what she was bragging about, that she can control the cases. She can tamper with evidence. She can submit this to the FBI and get the number, and she can, confess these felony crimes, and and they're going to, what are the, Jesus Nieto is not going to refer her for arrest. And protect her. I mean, this is this is just very obvious that everything that we're saying is not me. They wanted to call me all kinds of names because I would say what was going on, but now it's all being confirmed. It's all being confirmed in other cases, and as they try to cover up for all their crimes, they're exposing themselves every day, new, all the time. And when I was calling out asymmetric warfare, the psyops from the very beginning, now this is all documented that they use it, that they absolutely use it. And we've seen through this whole election process over these years, using our courts to attack political rivals. So it's a mess. It's a mess. And of course, the Walmart mass shooting was an attack on MAGA, on a political rival. And so this car truck, uh, you know, this Tesla truck could drive itself. Okay. And that's the only way it can describe kind of, I just don't know what came first, right? Something does not make sense. And I think as Americans are so sick and tired of this, and they're starting to pay attention and dig into all this and not buy the narrative, not buy the confusion, not buy the low morale. Americans are starting, their morale is starting to go up. Their patriotism is starting to go up. Their faith is starting to go up. And so the psyops are not working anymore. They're not sowing the confusion that they want to sow. They're not, destroying morale like they want to destroy morale. And you saw that with the election, right? And they're sure not controlling the narrative like they would like to control the narrative. So Danielle says they should interview every child that was ever in her care, in my opinion, especially her child care center, in my opinion. 100%. 100%. And also, if that child care center was receiving grants from the VA, because this is, the more you look into this, the more you realize that the LLCs, a lot of these LLCs, they would train their um, friends how to exploit the system or how to work the system to get these grants. And they were used for, I believe, their criminal activities. I don't believe anything good was coming out of Hart childcare. Sorry, not with the evidence that we have. And if that was being funded by government money for, let's say, disabled veteran, childcare, whatever the grant was for, um, this is, that all needs to look into how this was connected to the VA, to the grants that come out of the VA, to the IDS pay blow, and all the fraud that allegedly was happening and was happening in our son's case. And it's hard for me to even talk about because only demons can do that, what they do, to try to benefit and profit off of hurt or injured or deceased soldiers, fraudulently. It's just disgusting because they have to use a funeral home. Did they have access to that? Yes. Um, that's, you can remember that information. Do they have access to IDS Pablo? Yes. Do they have access to the DFAS? That is absolutely a yes. And if you've been with us from the very beginning, you absolutely understand the the violations that DFAS committed against us in our son's case. Um, so there is, a lot of investigation to do, a lot of fraud, a lot of covering up, and yeah, a lot of breaking news, and we're trying to be absolutely as transparent as we can. And Leilani Hart was in the middle of it. She was in the middle of it, um, in so many ways, in so many ways. It's like, um, all of a sudden her name comes up again and comes up again when it comes to 3905 Bliss Avenue, when it comes up to Richard's unit, when it comes up to Park University, when it goes into the CID, when it goes to the FBI, when it goes into horses, when it goes into Dance for Dreams, when it goes into um what is that, Dreams Cabaret, when it goes into, the hotels, when it goes into all these little businesses, functions going on, all of this, UPS, the post office, all, it's like Leilani Hart, Leilani Hart, Leilani Hart. Her name comes up, how do you not know Leilani Hart in the case of Richard Halliday, the whistleblower, Richard Halliday, the murder case, and also the Walmart mass shooting case, and so many. She's just, um, with Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, with Danae Katzen, with the Mormon congregation, with, the records on Fort Bliss, um, with the Directorate of Emergency Services, with Ann Ogle of CYS. I mean, all of a sudden, whose name pops up? Leilani Hart. Leilani Hart. And yeah, so she needs to be arrested. And I think that will, who's going to be arrested first? We thought that Bill Hicks might be arrested. They were going after him pretty good. Um, but he knows some things. We know some things that he knows some things. Um, and people in, it would be, yeah, it's no surprise. It's going to be like, who's going to be arrested first? I don't know. I don't know. Um, that El Paso Community Foundation's pretty powerful. The entity behind it is pretty powerful, um, with the connections. And yeah, who's going to? I maybe Leilani Hart um, will be arrested first. And yeah, I know that was a lot of information there. Pray for Sam Shoemate. Pray for Shawn Ryan. They're under a lot of pressure right now. I, I don't know them personally. I just know what I know, and something is going on that I see the same trend that has been used over and over again, that leads to not so nice of things, which leads to loss of life. And that's why I'm saying we need to really pray, because this is not fooling around. So thank you so much. God bless you all. And please share all this information. That's for our safety. Every time you share, it's for our safety. Um, so thank you so much. And I'm really, it is comforting that Shawn Ryan has so many followers, because that is his best security. And so, yeah, please share. And we will be back tomorrow